Hello, welcome back to RPZ, and this is DM Advice, the series in which I will give my input and my advice on problems with D&D campaigns. So, today, we'll start off with the broadest, which is how to make a good game. And making a good game for D&D has a lot of different aspects, dealing with both the dungeon master and the players. But overall, if you want to have a good campaign, you need to have everything planned. Planned with players, planned with thoughts. Planning is key. If you can't plan, you can't be a good dungeon master. If you can't write a compelling story, you can't be a good dungeon master. You have to talk to your players about the setting, the environment, everything. You have to make sure that your players understand what's going on. As if the players don't know what's going on, they might come in with something that you haven't planned for to have in the story. Like, you might have a story that has an absent race. You might have a story that can't have certain types of backgrounds. You might have a story that has specific roles that need to be filled. So you need to make sure that you talk with your players to make sure they get that environment. And with those players, you need to make sure that they are following sort of the code of the game. Something that dungeon masters will do will be, all right, so now you know the setting, now just show up with your character. That's never good. That will never end well. I mean, it might end well, but it won't. Eventually, something will go wrong. In order to make sure that the party is up to speed and can understand what's going on and how things should be run and what everyone else is doing, the dungeon master should work one-on-one with each player in order to make sure that they understand the story, make sure that they understand the things that are being looked for, make sure that they understand, hey, we already have let's just say a human a human fighter. We already have a human fighter. We can't have another human fighter. In order to have variety, uh, especially with D&D being a game that sort of dictates personality based on class. If you have too many of the same kind of people, well, you'll just get the same kind of people. And as funny as it would be to have a team of like 4 or 5 mages that all know Fireball and will spam the shit out of it, no, that's not compelling, and it might be fun when the players end up learning Fireball, but that's not how you write a good story. In D&D, while yes, it is about having fun, it's also about telling a story. You as a dungeon master, even if the players don't appreciate it, should make sure that you have a good story written. And don't delve into another player's backstory without talking to them first. Make sure that you have things written down, story ideas written down, plans for the future where it comes to character development and whatever. Just make sure that you have it written down and planned. If you don't have that, the campaign, maybe not at first, but it will eventually fall apart. And when the campaign falls apart, it's not fun for anyone. Planning can also help with the pacing of a story. Because if you don't pace things, you might end up having a story that ends way too quickly. or has the ability to end way too quickly, or a story that feels like it just drags on. Uh, to give an example, let's say that uh, you and a group of friends wanted to make a campaign that dealt in the same world as one of your favorite animes. Let's just say, like, I don't know, My Hero Academia. If you make a campaign that's in that setting, then something that you as a dungeon master will have to do is plan out when and and what you're having in the story, because I don't know if this will come to a surprise to anyone, but most worlds, when it comes to fictional worlds, if you base them in them, are very empty outside of what the main characters do and what's around the main characters. So, if you don't plan out what you're going to have in that world outside of what's going on with the main characters, it's not going to end well. Because you're going to have this story that might have a cool concept at first, you might have a couple of fun sessions, but then afterwards, you as a DM just won't be able to think of anything more. I personally had this problem with a Sword Art Online campaign that I ended up running, where it it's fun, still playing the campaign, it's a lot of fun, but what ended up happening is that since I didn't plan good pacing or events, the campaign ended up being fun for a couple of sessions, and then I ran out of ideas for what to do because there's a sense of timing that needs to be added for things. And that just leads back to the original point where planning is key. If you can't plan, don't bother. If you can't think of ideas, or you don't think that you can think of ideas for a running session or a running campaign, don't do it. Don't do it until you can think of more things. Talk to your players about it. Maybe they have ideas. Ask other people that may not be involved. They might have ideas. But don't run a campaign or a session if you can't think of anything. There is nothing worse than a lazy DM. Because if a player decides not to show up for a session, that's fine. If they're okay with it and it's a table that's fine with that, then everyone can still play the game and be fine. The DM may just roleplay the character, or maybe the character happens to disappear somewhere for some reason. Maybe they were taken away by the aliens for the session. Who knows? But if the DM has an issue where they can't do anything because they can't think of ideas or something else like that, everyone is stuck. So, if you're playing D&D and you want to play as the DM, make sure that you're someone that can be the DM. And there's way more to DMing than just planning. But planning is the first thing. And if you can't plan, then don't DM. That would be my advice and my input. That would be the end of this DM advice. And until next time, ta-ta.